Facebook. Hello, everybody. I'm Love Coach Scott Catamas, and this is Sacred Sunday, and we have a really wonderful guest. I just met her last night. She was on our Saturday Night Alive show, and she blew me away. And you know what? I forgot to ask you, do you prefer to be Eden Amore or Sarah Eden? That's how new we are to each other.
Yeah, she of many names. So my mom jokes around about this. So my name now that I go by and use in my world is Eden Amadora, and there's a meaning to it. I'll share a little bit later if you remind me.
Eden Amadora really impressed me because in her presentation yesterday, she was so clear, and we both have a love of Andrew Harvey, and I experienced that she has a similar quality. She's got that soft spiritual side, but she has a very direct, powerful Kali side, which I look forward to exploring with her a little bit tonight, this morning, I should say. Just a little bit about her. She's a speaker, coach, mentor, spiritual guide. She's the featured author in The New Feminine Evolutionary, Sacred Body Wisdom, and Divine Reunion. And she is a master facilitator, definitely an archetypal channel, a mystic, and a muse. After 20 years of yogic and shamanic training, Eden was led to find her heart at home in the divine feminine mysteries and the 13 Moon Mystery School. She left behind a whole jet set lifestyle in modeling, and I'm going to ask her about that because I'm an LA guy who's gone through my transformation. I'm really looking forward to hearing about yours. And now, pursuing her soul's calling, she's an ordained priestess, an ecstatic embodiment guide, I love those words together, and an initiator in catalyzing the remembrance of others' authentic voices and fully embodied expression. I love your wording and your languaging. So I'm going to put the spotlight on you for a moment and make sure that we're cross-posting. So when I'm looking down, everybody, I'm not texting, I'm just making sure we're cross-posting. But I'd love to start with you were telling me off camera about your spiritual awakening at age 28, and I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, that was a very unexpected turn. Excuse me. It was a very scary event in the eyes of my family. I was living in Milan. I was an international fashion model, and I had just signed a record deal that brought me back to America. And my life was full of glamour and chaos and a lot of what I would call splitting off from my soul purpose and my essence light. I had started off very young. My mom introduced me to yoga. I got into meditation, kind of naturally fell into it, maybe from many past lives. By 17, I was meditating. By 19, I was initiated in TM meditation. Years later, into Kriya yoga. I devoured spiritual books. So I had this foundation of a path of spirituality from a super young age. And at the same time, the split was the part of me on an ego level that was fascinated by glamour, worldly ambition, and materialism. So I found myself in Milan, married to a Playboy millionaire who was addicted to cocaine, and we owned an art gallery, and I was traveling around, bopping around, jet set, first class, 5-star, everything. And it's kind of like from the outside, the movie star lifestyle that people say, oh my God, they're young and beautiful and rich. They have everything. They've made it. We want that. Meanwhile, on the inside, there was so much disconnection, so much drama, so much corruption, so much toxicity. And it wasn't love. It wasn't like real love. It was egoic love. It was just, like I said before, total drama and chaos and high highs and low lows. And at my Saturn return, right after signing a record deal that brought me back to America to record, I was at a spiritual seminar. It was actually, I think a lot of people have heard about Landmark Forum. And what happened to me was, just like we don't go to a gym and start bench pressing 500 pounds right away, I don't know that my emotional body was quite prepared as an empath to take in everybody else's suffering and stories for 3 days in a row in the state I was in my own life. There was so much just tension in my being that I was primed to pop. And on the third day at the forum, I experienced something akin to something out of Carlos Castaneda's stories about Don Juan slapping him on the back and shifting his assemblage point to what they call a point of ruthlessness, where you stop speaking the polite, common conversation. You stop caring what people think about you. You're in a totally altered state. So naturally, this happened to me while participating in the forum. It felt like being slapped on the back and pushed out of my body and my normal personality. I kind of came to on the stage next to the leader, and I had just belted a song to the back wall about heaven on earth and peace and Eden. And then I landed for a moment back in my personality, like, what's happening to me? I don't understand what's going on. And then for 3 days, 3 nights and 4 days, I burned, and I didn't eat, sleep, or even drink water. It was a massive Kundalini awakening that to most people in the West looks like you've gone crazy.
Mm.
So I was hospitalized. I was sedated. Finally, my family was afraid that I would die. And if we were in another country, in these kind of situations, they feed you honey and ghee, they put flowers around your neck, they listen to you because you're a channel for divine mystic information. I was seeing beyond the veil. I was surrounded by guides. I was having multidimensional experiences, and it was a wild ride that was somewhat truncated at that time by the medication. I didn't continue with the medication. I did continue to awaken, and my life before that looked very it was like Kali, the goddess destroyer goddess, came in and gave me this big slap and said, enough of this, get into alignment, stop with the bullshit, excuse my language on your show. But that was the fierce love that actually asked me to come home to what I was really here for. So the record deal disintegrated because there was a lot of illusion and BS in that situation, really angry songs, belted, angstful songs that were hurting my voice and blaming and shaming through the lyrics. And that's what the label wanted, right? That's what's cool. That's what people resonate with. And that pop culture, and my heart and my soul was like, I'm going to make music in a different way now. And that is what continued. Broke up with the husband, the ex-husband, and got very simple, really simplified my life until my life became one of much more about service. How do I show up for first my own awakening heart, and then to be a clear mirror, pellucid mirror for others to see their beauty, their essence, and remember who they really are in my presence. And it's been many years of that path since then.
Wow. Um, First of all, I'm just so delighted to have you on the show. Second, on a personal level, I so relate to your story. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, started a media company. It actually started as a theater company when I was 17. By the time I was 23, I had won my first Emmy Award, and totally also was in the glamour of LA. I was lucky I didn't get into the cocaine world because I was producing educational television. So I was still kind of more in the, and I've always had, like yourself, always this spiritual desire to change the world. I was born on Christmas Day, and I literally grew up with a Messiah complex. And luckily, by the time I was in my early 20s, I figured out that it was up to all of us this time. But haven't you noticed that so many of us have had a similar track of going into the world, having that part of us that knew that we were here to do something important, significant, but then getting caught into the glamour? And there's a lot of new age glamour. There's a lot of glamour in different ways, a lot of, and we kind of go through those stages. And then we have the awakening, or maybe a series of awakenings. And sometimes the awakenings came through psychedelics, and sometimes the awakenings, are spontaneous. I always say to people, my most significant awakenings were without drugs. Um, and sometimes they're just like, they happen out of the blue. It's like you at Landmark Forum. So anyway, I just want to acknowledge my appreciation for your path and my appreciation for your humility, because it does take a lot to let go of the attachment to the sexy lifestyle, the romantic lifestyle, the lifestyle that everybody thinks we're supposed to have. And you did that. And when you talked about going into simplicity, that's such an incredibly important stage in our evolution, in our development. And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that piece and maybe tie it into the support that you provide to people now through your priestess training.
Yeah. First of all, I want to tell you how cool it is that you're born on Christmas Day, because I'm born on Christmas Eve.
No way.
Yeah. And later I'll tell you about what it is to be a unicorn as a Capricorn. It's pretty perfect for us, because the first level of Capricorn is just such that little like driven, I'm
Oh,
going to win with the most toys and material gain, and using the world for self-service. And then the next level is a symbol of the mergoat, which says, wow, I've gotten to the top of the mountain and I have all this stuff, whether it's knowledge or physical material wealth. And it's like, how can I serve? And it's giving back to humanity through more mundane means. And then the top level is the unicorn, and it's symbolized by taking the two horns of the goat and coming into unity consciousness, splitting the veil, seeing beyond the illusion of separation. And this level is bringing the divine light to this world, the Ka body initiate that's here as a world server from spirit. So I feel like you and I are both kind of resonating into the third level of Capricorn now, just to share that with all the Capricorns listening.
and have you
It's kind
noticed
of
one
fun.
last thing that I've noticed about Capricorn is that when we were young, we were total adults. Like I was such an adult when I was a kid. And as I get older, I become more and more and more childlike. Do you notice that too?
More levity, more ease. I was very
Okay.
driven, very serious, very stoic when I was young.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting looser and goofier as I get older. Thank
Silly.
goodness.
Isn't silly
Yeah,
wonderful? Because we
yeah.
couldn't
It's
be silly.
very liberating.
Yeah, we couldn't be silly when we were kids because we were like climbing that mountain and we were like, on our mission. And I mean, listen, I still have a big mission, and clearly so do you. But it's important to have that playfulness and that silliness.
Definitely. So back to your other question about how my life has gotten simpler. I remember a therapist once said to me, when you're creating a lot of drama and negative karma, your life feels like way out here. I know my background's disappearing my hands, but it's like you're kind of like all over the place. And the more you come into the heart, and really it's like slowing down and breathing and less reactivity and more wisdom, the outer life kind of tones down. Like I'm not living that jet set wild high highs and low lows, and partying in the way I used to back in my 20s and 30s even. And my life is simpler in the sense of meditation, prayer, really listening when things show up and the beings who are in front of me. What is real in my heart now? How can I choose from my heart in this moment? What would love say? What would love do? What would love choose? And it becomes really simple. I have one great friend who's like a TEDx speaker, best-selling author. She's all over the place with public speaking events. And she says, Eden, I channel you now because you're so consistent. Like you have one arrow in your quiver, and that's love. And I
Mm.
was like, yeah, but it's a super powerful arrow. And it reminds me of the Ramayana, where I don't know if your listeners are familiar with that ancient Indian myth. There's a fantastic metaphor in that mythology when Sita, who is the goddess that's married to Ram, the wife of Ram, who's a personification of divine love, the beloved, she's stolen by the evil demon Ravana, who's a personification of the ego, of corruption, of greed, of selfishness, of hatred, of illusion. Ram needs to go rescue her. So Hanuman, his faithful, devoted servant, takes a giant leap of faith, a big breath and a leap of faith from India, flies to Sri Lanka to find Sita, gives her the ring and says, have faith. And then Ram comes with his entire army. He gets to this terrible demon that's unbeatable. None of the other gods could conquer him. He's the most fierce warrior ever, this demon Ravana. And Ram has one arrow in his quiver, and that is the sun heart mantra. It's a vibrational weapon. It doesn't kill the demon, it liberates him instantly. He shoots it into his heart, and his heart becomes an effulgent sun. He remembers that he is simply love. And then, of course, he gives back Sita, because what else would love do? So this has been a myth and a metaphor that I've been working with really closely for a few years as I step deeper into a part of the mystery school work that's most interesting to me, that has to do with the inner marriage. So for the last 10 years, even going on 11 years now, I've been trained and ordained as a divine feminine mystery school teacher. And for years, it was all women in circles, really remembering their essence and that they are here as emissaries and embodiments of the goddess. And even though we're working with deep, deep rituals of forgiveness, of remembering Divine Mother's embrace of unconditional love, there were these splits in consciousness where women were still projecting that something was wrong with the men. The men weren't doing the work. The men were behind us. What is wrong with the men? And blaming the patriarchy and blaming the men as a patriarchy. And in my own journey, a few years ago, at the height of the Me Too movement, I went through a horrific heartbreak. One of these dark nights of the soul that actually was a blessing in retrospect, because from the very bottom, the depth of despair and hurt and heartbreak, the bottom of the sticky tar there, I got in touch with some of the rage, some of the feelings that as a spiritual person I had suppressed, denied, and avoided. In my lofty spiritual arrogance, I was like, oh no, I don't hate my ex. I don't want to kill him. I don't want revenge. I needed to tap down into the root of the root, into that samskaric energy embedded in the root that actually did hate him and want revenge and would want him to suffer the way I was suffering. And it was collective as well. The Me Too movement was chock full of revenge and hatred and blame and shame and victim consciousness that splits and divides us. And this is not to make light of the need to bring all of that darkness and that pattern of suppression against women, rape and abuse of women up to the surface. It's just now, what do we choose now? Do we choose to continue to point the finger and other and blame and victimize, or do we forgive? Do we let go? So in my own life, I was given this opportunity at the bottom of that well, in the darkest depth of pain. And from there, it was like the sun heart mantra hit me like an arrow in the center of the heart, because I looked at my own corruption, my own narcissism, I took all the splits back in the mirror, all the fragments. I went back through all my relationships, almost like a life review. And I saw the places I had been filled with toxic yang, toxic masculine patriarchal energy in the self. I took radical responsibility for my own bad behavior, the way that I had manipulated, the way that I had used and abused men, the way that I had seduced and given mixed messages and been selfish and self-absorbed, all the things that I would project out onto the ex-lover that I felt so victimized by. I owned it. And then I went back and back and back to the beginning of my memories as even a young teen, and just really saw there's only one of us here playing in these energies, trying to figure out what love really is. And in that moment, I forgave myself. And I forgave every other lover, my ex-husband who had been addicted to coke and cheated on me and threw me away, like, get another model, get a newer model. I forgave the whole shebang. And for me, that's the true meaning, the metaphysical meaning of the crucifixion. It's letting everyone off the cross, starting with yourself. It's utter and total forgiveness. And this is the gateway to the fourth initiation of Heros Gamos, the inner marriage, where the light of Christos explodes in your own heart, where you recognize that the beloved is not some idealized being out there that one day you're finally going to get rescued by, that the true beloved has always resided inside of that spark that singularity, that God portal in the center of our own sacred hearts. It's the home, the seat of the soul in the body. So I feel very grateful, very, very grateful for that dark night of the soul, and extremely grateful to have had the tools and the practices and the history and the mystery school training and the yogic training before that to recognize, wow, this is precious. This is a piece that I now weave into this divine feminine mystery school from my own embodied experience. And that's one of the things I'm most excited to share with others in my work.
I know you've got to go in just a few minutes, and so I want to keep the focus on you, but I've got to share kind of and I'll do it as briefly as I can, kind of the masculine perspective, including an archetypal story. Because you see, in this whole Me Too movement, deep down, us men, we feel so much shame because the masculine has been in control for thousands of years, and we fucked it up. We have not done a good job. We've raped the earth, we've raped our sisters and our daughters. And so part of the masculine spiritual awakening is how to manage this deep shame. And the archetypal story that I love that is from the Arthurian story. And when Lancelot has the affair with Guinevere, and Lancelot and Guinevere and Arthur are all devastated by it. And Guinevere becomes a nun, and Lancelot goes off into the forest, and Arthur just collapses. And everything goes fallow. And he has this vision that he has to find the Holy Grail, thinking it's the actual cup that Christ drank from. So he sends his knights out to find the Holy Grail, and they all get picked off. But the one knight who is able to go through all the different things finds the Grail, and the Grail isn't the object, it's a message that Arthur and the land are one.
Ooh, shivers.
Yeah, exactly. And he makes it back to Arthur, and Arthur's dying, and he whispers it into Arthur's ears. And Arthur realizes that in his own shame, he's been so focused on his own shame that he's forgotten his relationship to the land and to the people. And he remembers, again, it's that divine remembrance that I have something to do that is beyond my own personal pain, beyond my own personal shame. And he becomes strong again. And then, of course, the whole part about fighting Mordred, his son, and we won't go there. But it's
so powerful.
It's a powerful thing. And we do, us men, we do have to get in touch with our shame, just as you got in touch with your rage. And then we find that common place of compassionate, radical acceptance.
Right, because
Radical
we are both men and women, both creating the old dynamics that created the patriarchy. It is not just the men, the collapsed feminine, the indulgent feminine, the mothers that do not raise their sons to be stewards and protectors of the innocent and the feminine and Gaia, mothers that would swallow down their truth and their wisdom and their knowing for fear or indulgence and spoiling the masculine that becomes then narcissistic and sociopathic. So the indulgent feminine has fed the toxic, overblown yang masculine. It's a cycle. It's the yin and the yang, right? There's never one without the other. So when we all take radical responsibility and rise, women take up the sword of discernment and clarity to come into the light side of the masculine, the balanced solar masculine clarity and challenge of the illusion by using their voices to speak truth as love. This is the antidote for women. Men hold the chalice of surrender and transmute that shame and open their heart and unshield their heart and dissolve the armor around their hearts. And this is how the men come into balance and receive the medicine of the light feminine. And together we rise, together, not just the women taking back power. That's such an illusion. Together we rise, we need each other. It's about sacred union, and it starts within each of our hearts. It starts by the self-forgiveness, transmuting shame. Shame is like your brain on shame literally shuts down. They've done the whole kind of neuroscience around shame is that the parts responsible for growth, learning, awakening completely shut down. So it is basically the collapse. It's the collapsed Arthurian despair. When we go into shame, we do not grow together. So self-forgiveness is the balm. It's the key. It's the medicine that we need. Both of us, men and women together. Deep, deep forgiveness. And that came really strongly last night in the Divine Feminine Rising. It's like that balm of forgiveness, those tears of mercy, the waters of compassion. The awakening of the compassionate heart of humanity is the only way through this dark night of the soul that we're in together. We are in it together.
Wow. Thank you so much for weaving that together so beautifully. I could not agree more. And it is wonderful to meet that next step where it's like, okay, let's work this out together. Masculine and feminine, starting with self and self-love. I believe the meaning of life is we're here to learn to love, starting with ourselves.
Exactly.
All right, so how do people find out more about you? Because I know everybody's watching, especially when I acknowledge everybody watching the replay, but how do people get in touch with you? How do people get more of your medicine?
Yeah, I'm just about to launch the Eden Amadora website. So it's not quite there, but you can leave me your email if you're interested in connection. Otherwise, go to awakening-beauty.net, where you'll find out about my programs, mostly the priestess trainings, the one-on-one archetypal mentoring, which I do with both men and women. I work with men for the sacred archetypes of the masculine. You mentioned the king. There's the steward, the warrior, the lover, and the magician too, that we deeply honor and work with. And there are different levels of initiation, different programs that I'm available to talk to you about. So you can also look up sunheartfoundation.com to find out more about the intermarriage work. In the fall, I'll be starting another 3-month program. And I have a flourishing online community on Facebook called Live Embodied Love. And I believe I sent you an email with all those links, Scott, so you can help people out with some of those links.
And was it Awaken Dash Beauty or Awakening Beauty?
Awakening Dash Beauty.
Okay.
Yes, because we are all awakening, flowering, and unfolding continuously. There is no end. It's this beautiful, never-ending journey to share our beauty with each other, the true beauty of our essence.
Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to meet you. I would love to do a show on Friday nights with my partner Trish called Straight Talk. And we've been talking about doing a show about the healing of the masculine and the feminine. I would love to figure out a time that you're available on a Friday night and have you come in and be a part of that show.
I'd be honored. Thank you, Scott. It's a
Thank
pleasure.
you for so spontaneously. I know you're on to your next online event. So thank you for joining us tonight or today. I keep saying tonight.
Have a beautiful rest of your Sunday.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Blessings. Blessings.
And, for those of you, we're not done. About the only thing that could follow the power of this amazing woman that we just met is Andrew Harvey. And originally, Andrew was going to be on our show last night. And last night, our Saturday Night Alive with the Global Peace Tribe was all about the rise of the Divine Feminine. And when Deborah Giusti and I were putting it together and having all these amazing women, like you just met one of them, I thought, we got to have one or two powerful men to balance it out. And the first person I thought of was Andrew Harvey. And the second person I thought of was Matthew Fox. We reached out to both and they both said yes. Andrew's been on my show a couple times now. However, yesterday morning, we got the message that Andrew was ill and not physically able to join us. So I thought, okay, well, I'll show the video of my recent conversation with Andrew on my Sacred Sunday show, which is my plan, and I announced it. And then when I saw Eden Amadora speak and kind of through her connection to Andrew, I had to invite her. Wasn't sure she'd say yes, and she did. So today is a very spontaneous show. And what I'm going to do next is show a video recording of a conversation that I had with Andrew. And I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to get it to play easily. So give me a moment here. And while doing that, I'm going to also come in and there we go. Okay, great. Now, what's wonderful about this conversation is there's two parts to it. There's Andrew and I just chatting, person to person. Uh, we're kind of continuing to discover each other, get to know each other a little bit. I was way familiar with him. I've read several of his books. I had attended one of his webinars, but he was just getting to know me. And so you get to see kind of sweet Andrew laughing and joking and being kind and playful. And then when it comes time to record his message, you get to see Andrew channeling the divine. And Andrew's message is how to make our way through these crazy times, through this pandemic, through what's going on in the world. And so I thought it'd be interesting to see both sides of Andrew. So let's give it a go. I might pause a couple times. I'm also going to take a look at any comments that have come in while watching this. So here we go. I'm going to go to share screen. There we go. Do watch this. It's quite powerful. So here we go. Harvey.
Happening at exactly the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
As seekers, we need to develop the eyes to see the birth and the death, because the death is so frightening that if you're in your ego, you get panicked and depressed and desolate. But if you stay in the core of your being and just watch, you'll see all sorts of amazing signs of the birth appearing.
Yeah, yeah. I'm right there with you.
Do for you is to just give 7 tender suggestions as to how to stay sane and stay creative and stay grounded and stay building your reserve of courage for the great, great fight ahead to preserve the planet. So that's what I thought. Would that be a good thing to do?
Perfect, perfect.
Because I gave a pretty fierce message last time, and I'd like.
I loved it. You know, I edited it.
It went out to people.
Big time. I edited it down, you know, just so, no, I didn't cut any of you, but in other words, I edited your 18 minutes and put it into its own thing. And it's got,
minutes, my God.
Yeah, and it's got over 1,000 views. Yeah. And so, I so appreciate your wisdom, and it inspires me, and then I get to take it and share it with others. So thank you.
Thank you, my darling friend. And thank you for all the work you're doing to keep all of this alive. I mean, my God. It's amazing. Here we are in our little places, unable to move around.
Yeah.
And yet we can do this.
I
Are
teach
you looking after yourself? Are you getting... the hardest thing is to really do the necessary self-care, isn't it?
Yeah. You know, I'm blessed. I'm living with, I own a home. I've got 4 people who live here. They make wonderful food. I've got 2 puppy dogs.
Together during all of
And we've all been together the whole time, so we're all safe. I live in up in the wine country, north of San Francisco.
It's so beautiful. Oh my God.
It's beautiful. And in my county, the entire county has only had 23 cases of corona, and not one had to be hospitalized. So we're like in a bubble here. We're in a real safe. It's an oasis. Yeah, it's a safe little bubble.
You inspire me for many reasons, but I love your hair.
Oh, thank you.
Mean, you know, Deepak was coloring his hair, so I thought I'd color my hair for a bit, but I'm going to let it go.
No, we are the silver foxes, buddy. Whenever people say, I love your gray hair, I say, no, it's not gray, it's silver, right? See, it's the key is silver.
I love it.
It's silver, absolutely. Let's go for silver.
How old are you, Scott? How old are you?
I'm 64. I'm 64.
I'm going to be 68 next week.
Wow, yeah, so we're both baby boomers.
But don't you find it's the best time of your life?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's amazing what happens.
And I have so much energy. I'm so energized right now.
But you're in great shape too. You've looked after yourself.
I am.
Fit,
Yeah. I should exercise more. I go for 2 walks a day, but I should do more for my upper, my upper body. I'm spending all the time.
We'll do it together. We'll meet.
There you go.
I can't stand the gym, but I'm going to go. Swimming is my thing. I love
well, see, I have a lake. I don't know if you can see it. I'll try, but that's my lake where I go swimming
Oh
in the
my
summer.
God.
If you're able
Oh,
to
how
see that.
gorgeous.
Yeah. So as I sit here and I'm, talking to people that are suicidal, I'm watching the hummingbirds from the feeder and I'm looking at the lake and, you know,
Well, God's
and
put you in that place to be calm and to be filled with beauty so that you can do this work. I mean, people are in desperate shape, aren't they?
oh my God, it is. But I think what we're noticing, my tribe is thriving. Like
Right,
the people who've done the work, who have their
right,
practices, the people who have practices are thriving. The
right.
people who don't
That's the
have
key.
practices,
That's the key.
absolutely.
It's the key. I
Yeah.
mean, we've been waiting for this. We knew it was going to come. We knew we would see either the end of everything or the beginning of everything. We've been
Right.
preparing
Right.
for this.
Yeah.
And in a way, there's a relief that it's come
Yeah.
because the waiting for it was so painful.
And the way that it's come, isn't it about the most gentle possible way, really?
Well,
You
when it
know?
could be nuclear war, it could be
Exactly.
a tsunami after tsunami. And she shut us down to give us the chance to regroup at the deepest level.
Yeah.
That's the blessing of the coronavirus with all of the horror of it. 109,000 people dead. It's the blessing that we've had this time.
Hmm. Yeah.
People are listening in a way they've never listened.
And it's worldwide, so it's spread out. It's not just one place where the nuclear war took place or one place, where, it is. So everybody's feeling it. Everyone's aware of it, but it's, spread out. And again, of course, for the people that are dying or suffering and the economic, it's really hard. But it does feel like it's like such a gentle nudge from our Mother Earth compared to what it could be.
Oh God, yes. And for what it will be if we don't learn from it, because
Exactly.
it starts with a nudge and then she gets wilder.
Yeah,
So we've got to really use this amazing period
exactly.
to
Yeah,
plan for a new world.
yeah. And, I mean, we all are using it, but it is really truly the caterpillar into a butterfly experience. And
Yes,
we
yes,
are all the butterfly cells finding each other,
yes, yes. The
you know?
imaginal cells waking up in the soup. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
such a great analogy, isn't it?
It's amazing. I mean, it
It's
just never
amazing.
gets.
It's natural and it's totally revelatory of what's actually happening.
And it's interesting because we're the same age. A lot of the people
I'm
that
your elder brother. I can boss you around in the
okay,
age.
go for it. Yeah, absolutely. And you are my elder. But a
Oh yeah,
lot of us that are in our 50s, 60s, and 70s are being called on at this time. And
absolutely.
it's kind of like the old gunfighters that have been retired for a while and, going out for one last,
It's
one
like the
last
generals
roundup.
who've just been speaking up, isn't it? They'd be wandering around that lake and
Yeah.
shooting the odd pheasant, and now it's time to speak up to preserve the democracy.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That
Yes.
really is. Yeah. So, all right. Well, I'm going to put the spotlight
Okay.
on you,
I'll
and
go for about 10 minutes. Is that what you want?
that would be great. Yeah. If
10 is
hang on.
good.
Let's see, where's pin video? There we go. Um, all right. Whenever you're ready.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew, what are your thoughts? Especially our theme for tonight's show is how we can act locally while thinking globally. So that theme and what's going on in our country, what would you like to share with our audience?
I would like to share with you 7 tender suggestions as to how to live this absolutely insane and extraordinary period that we found ourselves in. A period in which it is quite obvious something is dying in horror and pain and agony, and something amazing, potentially, if we really work with it, is being born. It's a very strange time, as I'm sure all of you are experiencing, because it's a time in which, on the one hand, the whole world is boiling in a whole concatenation of crises. And those crises are all urgent, and together they pose a threat to the whole future of humanity, and potentially here in America, the whole future of democracy. And on the other hand, we're in lockdown still. What's the meaning of this? I believe the meaning of this is that the mother is giving us time, you and I, to regroup at the deepest possible level so as to become calm and joyful and passionate and compassionate and strong enough to really, when this cloud of the coronavirus starts to dissipate, step up and serve her in sacred activism with the fullness of all we are. So how do we work with this strange blessing? So here are my suggestions. The first suggestion, and this is quite a strong suggestion from your old uncle, is that you stay safe. The coronavirus has not been mastered. Happy talk from that demented psychopath in the White House will not do it. I'm in contact with the leading epidemiologists of the world, and they all tell me that there are many, many, many more cases than are being reported, and that there almost certainly will be a major surge again in the fall, and that we're headed for a very dramatic and dark winter. I'm not saying that to frighten you. I'm saying that to make sure that you stay safe, because you are going to be needed. We're going into a long, bitter, brutal, amazing, frightening, extraordinary struggle for the future of the planet. And it's going to need the seekers safe and whole and well. So that's my first suggestion. Don't believe any of the happy talk about the virus. Be aware that this is a virus that could very well mutate. Be aware that there are other viruses out there. There are 1,400 coronaviruses carried by the bats, and there are other potential pandemics. Don't panic. Keep safe. My second tender suggestion is to make sure that although you are in lockdown, that you do what I call small acts of mercy, small acts of deep compassion. You know that there are people starving. You know that there are homeless on those streets who are so terrified of going to shelters because they're petri dishes for this virus. You know that there are friends of yours who are going through suicidal depression because they're waking up to the extremity of the situation that we're in. Make sure that you help in whatever way is appropriate for you. Because by helping in that way, it may seem small, it may seem in a sense pointless. It isn't. It is a way that you are building the cells of a new sacred activist body within yourself, which will be ready when the time comes. You will be practicing compassion, practicing mercy, practicing help, and do so with joy and gratitude that you can, and something amazing will start growing in you. My third suggestion is that you deepen passionately and focusedly your spiritual practice. One thing I've noticed, and Scott and I were having a wonderful conversation before I began to give this message, is that this is a time in which those who have for years and years done serious practice are doing well despite everything that's exploding out there. Because through the grace of the beloved and through the grace of the efforts that we've made out of love for the beloved, we're being fed calm, we're being fed joy, we're being fed radical insight into the nature of this crisis. And that is keeping us steady. It isn't that we don't have days of desolation. It isn't that we don't have days of exhaustion. It isn't that we don't have moments of extreme despair and hopelessness. but that we know that that isn't the real part of ourselves, the truth of ourselves, because we've tasted and lived that truth. So if that hasn't been flashed out in the core of your heart, that deathless certainty of your own deathless truth, practice, 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 practice. Because I know that there is an immense wave of grace coming to us from the core of God to give us that next level of our realization, to equip us for the work of birthing the birth in the middle of the death ahead. And that this shutdown is the time in which, if we practice with deepest devotion and passion, we will make the most astounding progress. This is happening to me. I have made more inner progress in these last 2 months than I've made in the last 10 years, because I've known that the time is now. And in turning to the Beloved, I found that the Beloved has given me absolutely extraordinary radiance of peace and of joy and of focus. And I'm not special. This is what the Beloved's up to with anyone who turns up to the Beloved and asks, through turning up in the relationship, through practice. So that's the third. I also, the fourth suggestion is, I found it absolutely essential to what I call stay aware. Look, terrible things are coming down. I don't have to enumerate them. They're exploding on your television screens. You know that. But also amazing things are appearing. So what we're being asked to do is to stay aware of this astounding alchemical process that we're now all in which we're being devastated and redeemed, slaughtered and reborn at the same time. And what that means for all of us is that we need to, through practice and through prayer, create a container in which we can simultaneously hold two previously unimaginable opposites without growing crazy. On the one hand, the possibility of extinction, which is a real possibility, the possibility of the birth of a monstrous fascism in America, which is now we've seen, you know, who announced the potential martial law. We know that that is possible. And on the other hand, we've seen the astounding courage of the doctors and the nurses and the postal workers and the grocery guys and girls who've been helping us. We've seen the astounding, beautiful, holy courage of millions of protesters who are risking their lives to stand up for justice. We've seen the most extraordinary, heroic testimony from great investigative journalists and fiery, brilliant people on television who are absolutely prepared to tell us the truth about what's going on. And we've heard really rousing, glorious messages from major teachers who know that this is the time of the birth. So what's needed for all of us is to build this container to be able to contain these opposites without veering to despair or veering to too floaty, magical thinking, staying stable, watching, really contemplating, but asking most of all, and I think this is the most important thing that I could say to you, asking for the grace from the Beloved to develop what I call birth eyes. It's very easy to see all the different writhing, terrible, blood-soaked facts of the death. They're all there. They're all now nakedly visible. But what's really important for sacred activists and for all people who want to be of service to the future is to pray for the divine insight to be able to see where the birth is appearing. And it's appearing. It's appearing in all the acts of courage I've been talking about. It's appearing in the extraordinary visions that is appearing amongst generals, amongst business people, of the kind of world that we're going to have to create if we're going to be able to preserve the world. An immense tragedy has caused an immense urgency, and the immense urgency has engendered a new set of crystallized, pragmatic, very noble visions, which will need our total support. They're coming, they're here, and they're longing for you to recognize them, because when you recognize them, you will be filled with a rugged, noble hope. The fifth suggestion is a very important one I found. I'll tell you a story. About a week ago, I rang one of my greatest friends, who is one of the great environmentalists on the planet and who has been working in the trenches for 40 years to try and wake people up to the really terrifying position that the climate's in. And most of the time, she is the feistiest, cheeriest person I know, and she makes Mother Courage look weak. She is a rock in my life. But it was a Sunday, and the usual slew of terrible news had come in, and she was utterly destroyed and utterly grieving and sobbing, and I had never, ever, ever seen her in such a terrible state. I asked her, "Are you okay?" And she said, "Yes, of course I'm okay. It's very important to grieve." So when grief comes to you, when heartbreak reveals itself as a possibility in your heart, don't indulge in happy talk. Don't think that there's anything weird about heartbreak. Realize that heartbreak is the sign that you have a heart at all. It's like the Tin Man in Dorothy who says, "No, I know I have a heart because it's breaking." You're not heartbroken at the death of George Floyd. You're not heartbroken at the long litany of murders of young African-American men. If you're not heartbroken at the way in which America has consistently ignored its own most ferocious wound, you're not heartbroken at the absolute idiocy of the reaction to this. If you're not heartbroken at the tearing of the Constitution and the burning of the laws of this country, if you're not heartbroken at the insanity, the detailed and planned insanity of the dark forces that are now ruling us, you're not human. But if you're only heartbroken, and you're not using that heartbreak or letting that heartbreak guide you into a vaster compassion and a deeper, deeper focus on what you can do to bring in and sustain the structures that could end those injustices, you're not divine. So allow yourself time to grieve. Heartbreak is sacred. It won't kill you. It won't drive you mad. It will make you more human, kinder, more loving, more passionate about justice, and braver if you let it. It's a divine gift sent to ennoble you. So find time to breathe. The sixth suggestion, and I know all of you know this, but it's so sacred at this moment. I found this period to be both the most painful period, perhaps, of my adult life, for all the obvious reasons, but also the most joyful period, because it's been a period in which I've reconnected with old friends, old lovers, old colleagues that I haven't seen for many years, and we've had the most electrifying, heartwarming, heart-inspiring conversations. It's as if in the middle of all of this tragic agony that we're living, the mother is joining us again in tribes, in networks of grace, as if she's forming out of the decay new alignments that, if we stay with them, if we realize the gift of what we've been given and truly cultivate at a much deeper level than we've ever done before, the sacred power of friendship, the sacred power that comes from loving our animals with a deeper love, then we will go out into the new world that will appear, and it'll be a bloody world, a difficult world, a brutal world. We'll go out flanked with people whose spirits will be supporting us and whose spirits we will be supporting for the great struggle to birth a new way of being and doing everything. Notice the brilliance of the mother's work in all of this. I just want to thank my cat, because these last 2 months have been a festival of rapture with my baby, Jade. She has to deal with me traveling so much, but I haven't been going anywhere. And for the first time in time we've been together, she's had me to herself and I've had her to myself. And she's been able to guide me into deeper and deeper celebration of life by her tenderness and by the bliss that we experience together, just lying silently in each other's arms. What a blessing. What a blessing this terrible time has been to those who've known that one of its secret purposes is to bring us together with those we love and those who love us, so as we can taste at deeper level than we've ever tasted it before, just how essential real friendship at a soul level is, and just how much hope and courage it can provide us for the long, difficult work ahead. So I want to leave you with one last suggestion, which really encompasses them all. About 3 years ago, I sat down with my great friend Carolyn Baker, who's one of the greatest American mystical intellectuals. She's one of the most noble people I know, and she's been for 15 years fearlessly proclaiming that this moment would come. And she's been called, like I've been called, a Debbie Downer and a crazy person and a doom merchant. And we've known that this time was coming, and we've supported each other because we've known that all those people who called us pessimistic would be so grateful when the time came, because they'd see that we weren't defeated by what we knew, because we've been preparing for this, and we're strong, and we're happy, and we're here, and we're focused, and we're with you because we love you. And Carolyn and I decided that we were going to write a book just to piss off everybody who thought we were Debbie Downers, called Return to Joy. And it was the most joyful experience of my life, sitting with Carolyn, who knows absolutely everything about what's going on in the environment and why the million species on the edge of extinction, why the human race is in a state of funk when it needs to be activated. There's nothing she doesn't know about the dark. But she knows something which I know. And that is that the ultimate nature of reality is bliss. In the Taittiriya Upanishad, forgive me if I quote Sanskrit scriptures, but it's all there, baby. In the Taittiriya Upanishads, it says, from the great bliss, all things arise. In the great bliss, all things are sustained. And to the great bliss, all things return. That isn't poetry. That is the experience you have when you awaken. That is the experience that you have in an unforgettable and overwhelming way, which forever changes your life, when through the grace of the beloved, you are initiated into the ultimate truth of reality. I've had that experience, and I'm sure many of you have had that experience. But what that experience should lead us to do, especially at a time like this, is to cultivate daily joy, to really tune our whole being to that ultimate reality, not so that we deny the horror and tragedy of what's happening, because you don't need to turn away from that, but so that we can bring into the middle of the burning world presences lit up by the golden light of the joy that doesn't need anything, because it comes straight from the truth, straight from the source. So whatever makes you joyful, make a list of the 10 things that give you joy and make sure that you turn to all 10 every single day and fill your lives with that joy and turn to the source of joy wherever you find it and worship beauty as the sister of joy, whether it's in music or in the eyes of a friend or in the light shining in the summer in the core of a tree, wherever it is, know that it is beauty itself kissing you. Know it is the joy, the ananda of the Godhead that's reaching out to you. And let that joy give you strength, give you courage, give you chutzpah, give you peace. And keep calm, carry on.
Oh my God. What a ride. I mean, I'm going to share this not only, of course, tonight in our show, but I'm going to share this out to so many people because you really nailed it all, Andrew. You so beautifully. I mean, that was just, I mean, thank God number 5 was the crying one, the heartbreak one, because I had time to recuperate.
You know, how long was it? 10 minutes? I didn't even time it, to be honest. I don't know. I think we held up to minutes. Yeah, it was perfect. It was perfect. I may, when I introduce it, explain to people what you mean by the beloved, because not everybody has read Rumi or Andrew Harvey. Right. It's good.
I'm going to come back. I'm trying to find where it is so I can stop it. There we go.
I've always loved calling it the eternal beloved. That's what I'm
It's such the best word ever.
It is. It's the best.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Isn't he remarkable? He's just remarkable. And then when afterwards he comes back and we just chit chat back and forth again. But just like his incredible clarity and wisdom, and really, obviously, is a role model for me. That ability to be so in his heart and so personable and not in his ego at all. But then when the time comes to share the wisdom or to share what's coming through, so clear. So how do we make a Sunday sacred? We see the divine in all. And I want to thank all of you for watching. I'll go back and take a look at the comments that have come in and respond. It's very smoky where I am. You know, I was evacuated on Wednesday, and I'm staying with a friend in Tiburon, and I'm blessed. I'm in a beautiful place, but boy, it's very, very smoky, and it's going to be like this probably for quite a while. These fires are unbelievable. I just read that you know, there's 2 massive fires, and they're already 2 of the 4 largest fires in California history, the entire history of California. 2 of the largest fires ever are happening right now. One is 7% contained, and one is 15% contained. So they're going to be going on for a long time. So prayers for all the people who are losing their homes, displaced, the animals, all the wildlife. It's really kind of apocalyptic here right now. But Andrew just gave us wisdom, and before that, Eden, I really appreciated her amazing wisdom. What a wonderful, wise woman. So thank you for watching. Have a beautiful Sacred Sunday, and I look forward to our next connection. Take care.